guys, it's Emma and I'm back today for you with another video, and today I'm going to be reviewing a book, okay? And that book that I'm going to be reviewing for y'all today is Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. Alright, this is the sequel to Black Sun. This book picks up right where Black Sun ends. Serapio has just murdered pretty much all of the Watchers, and has now become an avatar for the Crow God, along with Narampa becoming an avatar for the Sun God. So Tova is now basically under this gigantic eclipse, and everybody's just plotting and plotting and plotting and making new alliances, breaking old ones. Meanwhile, the entire time, Serapio and Narampa are getting used to their powers and going at one another because the Crow God and the Sun God have this beef, this eternal cosmic beef, okay? And yeah, this book is just a whole lot of everybody double-crossing one another and making new alliances. Now, the trigger warnings for this book are murder, death, death of a loved one, animal death, gore, body horror, torture, and self-mutilation. I'm gonna be honest, this book was a massive disappointment for me, all right? As somebody who loved Black Sun, I'm here to tell you right here and now, if it weren't like 50 something degrees where I am right now, I would go up onto the roof of my apartment building and scream how much I love Black Sun from the rooftop of my building. This is gonna be my non-spoilery review for Fevered Star. If you haven't read Black Sun, I don't know if I would recommend watching this video because I might spoil some things from Black Sun. These are all my opinions, okay? My opinions are subjective, reading is subjective, and unfortunately, like I just said, I didn't have a good time reading this book. Honestly, it was kind of just a downward slope. With that being said, before we actually start the video, I would really appreciate it if you guys would look down in the description box for all the links there that I have for you guys pertaining to stuff going on in the world right now. For example, what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, what's going on in Sudan, what's going on in Myanmar, anything of the sort, right? So those links to articles and donation pages will be down in the description box for you guys to share, interact with. And meanwhile, in the comment section, let me know whether you've read Fevered Star, whether you liked it, whether you liked Black Sun, whether you liked that one, whether you guys are gonna continue to read this trilogy, because it's a trilogy. Yay. Okay, the usual, right? So with that being said, let's just get right on into it. The first pro that we're gonna start with is the dialogue, all right? I loved the dialogue in this book. There are just so many great quotes. Now, don't get me wrong, it was kind of cringy at times. This book has anywhere from banger quotes to absolutely opposite comebacks. You know, like comebacks I would see a middle schooler make. The disconnect is a little jarring when you think about it. But the overall prose in this book, I really enjoyed. It reminded me a lot of Black Sun. And unfortunately, that was a little short-lived. However, my second pro with Fevered Star was the upped grittiness, for lack of a better word. All right, this book is bloodier. This book is darker. All right, if you gleaned anything from the trigger warnings, okay, this book steps it up a notch, which I kind of enjoy. I'm not gonna lie, I do really appreciate the grittiness, or like the edginess, I guess, again, for lack of better words, in books, especially fantasy books. I think they just add higher stakes, especially the last scene. All right, I'm not gonna spoil it, obviously, but if you are like me and you made it to the end of this book, the last scene I really appreciated. And then my third pro is the pacing. All right, the pacing in this book is great. I'm not gonna lie, for maybe the first 50 pages, it was a little slow. But after that, breezy. All right, I was flying through this book. It honestly reminded me of my reading experience of To Kill a Kingdom. If you guys have seen that review, if not, I'll put it somewhere up here. I've cleared 200 pages like that, you know, in no time. But what's happened in those 200 pages? You know? Nothing. So what's the point of those 200 pages, you know? Now we're gonna get to the cons, okay? And my first con is the overall lack of substance in this book, okay? Throughout this book, there's just a general, consistent lack of plot. I'm sure you're looking through whatever screen you're watching this on, and being like, well, Emma, then that must mean that there's something going on with the characters, right? Not really, which we'll get to in a little bit, okay? But hate to burst your bubble, girl, but come back on down to earth. This book is full of political intrigue, which normally I would like, okay? I love political intrigue in books. I think that's like my new thing, especially for fantasy. I love people plotting against one another, sabotaging each other. I love it. However, the constant going back and forth from these points of views and how that was done, coupled with the deepening of all of the scheming, coupled with the confusion of who is being talked about and who is being schemed against, got very confusing. At points, I remember having to stop, put the book down and being like, okay, no. So no, these people are with these people and these people hate those people, yet those people are secretly aligned with these people. Okay, wait, no. These people are now breaking it off with these people and now forming an alliance with these people. It was a little too much. It just caused mass confusion, mass hysteria, mass casualties. Moreover, I think this book is just a severe case of middle book syndrome. All right, I personally don't think that this series needs to be a trilogy. All right, and my opinion is backed up by the sheer lack of anything going on in this book. Honestly, you could have just taken Black Sun and the new book coming out, books 1 and 3, and just, I guess, extended the ending of one and extended the beginning of another to accommodate for the loss of book 2, you know, and just made it a duology. I think it would have flowed a little better so that then, you know, we wouldn't have, I guess, the extra in the middle, I hate to say, because barely anything happens in this book. And I mean that with the utmost sincerity, okay? Barely anything happens plot-wise. Barely anything happens characterization-wise, all right? The entirety of this book, upon my cranium, is like development and build-up for the last book. And that's it. And I remember thinking to myself, whilst I was reading this book sitting atop my cranium, maybe like towards the beginning, maybe like the first 100 pages in, I'm like, okay, no, what's happened so far is just build-up. And I'm trying to decide, I think I said so on my Goodreads updates, I was like, no, I'm trying to decide whether or not this buildup is going to be for the end of this book or for the entirety of the third book. A very large majority of this book that I'm currently crowned with is just long and boring. And that's it. Maybe except for the very beginning when you're trying to piece everything together and the very end with that really cool scene. All right, but otherwise, this book is boring. Con number 2 that I have with Fevered Star is the characters being essentially demoted. And one of my biggest examples of this is Shiala. She was one of my favorite characters in Black Sun. All right, I loved her. And yet in this book, she's essentially dumbed down so much to be so incompetent, and how dare you? She was a badass in the first book. And in here, she's what? She is not only demoted to being a ditz, all right, which is just insulting. It's so, oh my gosh, it was awful. But she's also demoted to essentially being a porthole for us to look out onto like the world building and anything that is remotely exciting that happens. It made me start to question. I was like, okay, wait a minute. No, was I just wearing rose-colored glasses for Black Sun? Like, was she this incompetent in the first book? Because I don't remember her being this dumb. There's an instance where I just had to put the book down because I got such secondhand embarrassment. Like, I was rolling my eyes to the point where they would have stayed in my skull. It's the same thing with all of the other main characters, okay? Like Shiala, they are all, and I'm talking Shiala, Okoa, pretty much everybody that we get a point of view from is demoted to being an observer for the continuous development, not for the plot in this book, but for the plot at the very end of this book and the plot of the next book. Serapio and Narampa, they were honestly the only two characters that I really liked, that I was actually rooting for, that I genuinely wanted to read about. While I really did like, you know, them being locked in this cosmic battle because of them being avatars for their respective gods, their fights were too damn short. The entirety of Black Sun was building up for Serapio to become the crow god, which he did. And, you know, Narampa becomes the sun god's avatar. And so this whole thing is essentially, you know, people making alliances and sabotaging one another based on who they think is going to win. And yet every single time that Narampa and Serapio go at one another, duke each other out, they duke one another out for maybe 2 pages, and that's it. And that's it. All right, what cosmic battle? Serapio and Narampa are not written to be playing chess, all right? They are written to be playing Connect 4 and for maybe 2 minutes at a time. And then my third con, my last con for Fevered Star is the writing style. Okay, yes, I was praising the prose earlier, but the writing style itself, I had a grudge with. And the main part about it is that it is so confusing throughout this book to know who is being talked to, who is being talked about, who is doing what, and who is doing what to whom. Please use more characters' names, okay? Please do not just use he said, she said, all right, that woman said, that man said, any variations of that, okay? We do get neo-pronouns in this book. There's only, what, maybe 2 characters that use neo-pronouns? I knew when they were talking. I'll give y'all an example sentence, okay? John and Roger went to the store. He bought something for him. Is Roger buying something for John, or is John buying something for Roger? And that, coupled with how much sabotage, how much political intrigue is in this book, obviously involving multiple characters at a time, is damn confusing. We maybe get names once in a while, all right? I have to guess who's conspiring against who when it really should be that plain right in front of my eyes, you know, because they're right there. These characters are right here on a page saying, yeah, no, I'm gonna stab this bitch, you know? And then so this bitch is like, yeah, no, I'm gonna help you stab this bitch, when really I'm gonna stab you, you know? And I'm like, who? Who has the knife? As someone who loves political intrigue, as someone who loves seeing people conspire against one another, this was a headache, all right? I gave Fevered Star 2 stars. I will read the last book. Purely on principle, okay? Purely because I loved Black Sun and I don't want to give up on her. Purely because I love Serapio and I don't want to give up on him. He's like my favorite character. And purely because I'm intrigued by Narampa's story. Narampa's whole thing, I think, is the best thing that comes out of Fevered Star. Yeah, no, this book was just disappointing beyond words, and I quite frankly don't know how I'm gonna be able to live with it. So you guys, that was my review for Fevered Star. I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope that, quite honestly, the third book is better, because, oh man, if it's anything like Fevered Star, I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, you guys, I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope that you continue to look out for more stuff on my channel. I hope that you guys are staying safe. And lastly, I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.